Good morning. I'd like to welcome you to the Brookings County Commission meeting Tuesday, March 5th, 2024. Start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. Item number 3 on the agenda is invitation for a citizen to schedule time on the commission agenda for an item not listed. There's a 5-minute time limit per person. Anybody wanting to speak during this agenda item must sign in prior to the start of the meeting. No commission action will be taken during this agenda item. Any requested action may be scheduled at a future meeting date. I don't believe we have any individuals today, so we'll move on to item number 4, approval of the agenda. A motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any additions, corrections?
On the exec session, I need to add 125, SDCL 125-4 for contract negotiations as well.
Okay. Any other questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Item number 5, employee anniversary recognition. Commissioner Hostler will handle those duties today.
Certificate of Appreciation is presented to Eric Meddy on this 5th day of April 2024, 5th day of March 2024, in Brookings County Commission in recognition of 5 years of dedicated, exceptional service to the Brookings County Commission Department.
Move on to consent agenda items. We have the minutes, travel education, personal action notices, cellular authorizations, human services report. Do I have a motion to approve?
Move approval.
I have a motion and a second. Any additions, corrections? Any questions? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Vanderwall,
Aye.
Bartley,
Aye.
Krogman, Hostler,
Aye.
Jensen,
Aye.
motion carries.
Item number 7, routine business. We have approval of the claims. Do I have a motion to approve?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any comments? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Bartley,
Aye.
Krogman, Hostler,
Aye.
Vanderwall,
Aye.
Jensen,
Aye.
motion carries.
Moving on to item number B, department head reports, County Development Department.
I put everything in my written report, but if there was a 6 Mile Creek flood feasibility study, I went ahead and attended that for the first hour until they got to the landowner comment part. And what they're looking at doing is trying to make the flow of 6 Mile Creek go better through town itself. The study really doesn't stretch into the county area, which is why I was at the meeting to see if it was going to cover anything into the county area. So looked like the biggest thing I saw come out of the meeting is looks like they are going to propose some dredging projects and try to lessen the flooding right along in town on 6 Mile Creek. So other than that, everything else was down. Had a good meeting at Valero yesterday, and later in the commission, I've got an agreement with United Living Community that we'll discuss at that time. Any questions? Thank you.
Highway Department.
Good morning. Opened up bids on Wednesday, the 21st, and Wednesday, the 28th. Be for our chip seal overlay and supplies and materials. I think a few of you guys were in attendance. You guys will look at the bids here later in the meeting. The 21st, I also attended a 2/14th planning meeting, and I guess we'll be updated by banner in that also. The 27th and 28th, the crew attended MSHA here in Brookings. And on the 29th, I attended the township meeting down at the Outdoor Adventure Center. And here in the future, I'll be out in Deadwood for the Highway Superintendent's Annual Short Course. And last but not least is the 2024 Spring Load Limits. Be posted on the 11th of March.
Okay, any questions for Brian? No? Thank you.
Thanks.
Good morning. I
Morning.
attended the meeting also. It seemed like there were some new faces there, a lot of the familiar ones, so I tell my same story that I told last year, but they seemed to enjoy it, so it was probably a repeat for some of them. Anyway, just quickly, we have 44 in jail, so our numbers are down. As far as Brookings County inmates, we have 16 Brookings County inmates in there. The rest of them are from other agencies. 24/7 continues to stay busy with 143 participants. And then so far, we've collected $180,000 in jail, from other counties and so forth. So busy weekend for law enforcement and first responders. It started Thursday with the fire. I won't go through everything because I think you guys got the media release, so I won't repeat myself with everything, but started with the fire in Aurora, and over the weekend with the pickup that ran into the house. So we're going to keep Dan's office busy this weekend. Not just my department, but all law enforcement. And so it was a busy weekend. I just want to say I'm pretty proud of my guys because they're all new. They're all pretty green that worked all this, and they did a good job. I got a good sergeant that is a good mentor, so if they do have questions, they can call him, and he can kind of work them through when there's time to do that. But the guys did a good job with everything. Also, we got our new K-9 came in on Thursday, so I didn't get in time to do a travel request. So now he's going to be out for 13 weeks with training. The first 6 weeks is drugs, then the next 6 weeks is the patrol side, the apprehension side. So it's in Sioux Falls, and his per diem, I got donations to pay for his per diem. So training is free, Sioux Falls, and the troopers do the training, so the training's free. So it'd be, of course, wages and travel time, but other than that, unless you guys have some questions on anything.
Any questions, Marty?
Thank you.
Lori?
Good morning. Just want to give you a quick update. February 20th through the 24th, we're out in Spearfish for the Weed and Pest Conference. Some new things, a lot of repeat. It was an okay conference. Next year, the conference will be in Huron, so what they're going to be doing now is going east side of the state, west side of the state, every other year. That's what they're looking at. We will not have to attend district meetings anymore. We do, however, have to attend the conference, and they're going to incorporate the district meetings into the conference. So just wanted to let you know that. had our annual weed and pest meeting on the 29th. I think that went really well. Well attended. Obviously, you were all there. Last night, I went to Cottington County's annual meeting. A lot of good conversation there. I won't get into detail with that. We will have ATG, excuse me. We're going to be going through applicants for the ATV driver position, so that'll be coming up. Chemical bids, we opened at the last commission meeting. You guys accepted all bids. Just want to let you guys all know that the 240 is 17 cents an ounce, what we'll be charging. Free Lex is 30 cents an ounce, and Grazon PD and 3 is 45 cents an ounce. Otherwise, I don't have anything else. If you have any questions for me?
I guess I was gonna, how many counties attend the annual? I mean, how many counties have weed departments, I was gonna ask.
All of them do.
Okay,
Counties in South Dakota, majority of them do. I should let you know our grant will be $6,500 this year. There's a few counties that did not attend the district meeting and the conference, so then therefore, the amount we get from the State Department of Ag goes up because they just calculate that. The majority of them do. I guess I don't know the exact number, Larry. I
No, I
can
was
find
just-
that out.
I was just curious, how many?
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thanks.
We are a little early for the,
If you want to start, it's fine. It's not a public hearing,
Okay.
so we can get started with Todd since he's
we have
here.
a scheduled, agenda item. Todd Vanderwall with Brookings Municipal Utilities will be in attendance to discuss the maintenance project that will require the closure of 32nd Avenue.
Morning. Yeah, just wanted a brief overview of what BMU has scheduled in the south side of town. BMU approximately operates and owns about 20 miles of transmission line that feeds the city of Brookings, the community of Brookings. And throughout the last several years, there's been quite a few upgrades made to that system. And the last leg of it is approximately about 5 miles that extends along 34th Avenue down to County Road 26, and then will extend west over to Madera up to our Prairie substation. The goal of that project is only to replace the top static wire, as we refer to it, the very top conductor on that transmission line. Throughout the years, that line was currently built back in 1989, and back in the practices of building transmission in those days, OPGW, which is an optical ground wire with fiber in it, was kind of new technology and really wasn't used as a normal practice when we built that line in '89. So in the past history, as we've been upgrading that transmission line, we've improved that to OPGW, so we've got that fiber capability. And this is the last section of overhead that we need to replace in order to provide SCADA capabilities, and then we're doing some other AMI metering projects in town too that we're going to have capacity to run over that fiber. So we've gone through this winter, got a lot of the hardware and everything lined up, got the contractor lined up, and the easiest place to work is going to be on that right-of-way. So we've applied for a right to work in the right-of-way off of those roads to reach the tops of those structures. With this project, there won't be any excavation planned or anything like that. It's typically dead-ending the current top static wire and then stringing in a whole new conductor on the tops of those structures. Length of the project is estimated to be 3 to 4 weeks. They plan to work, typically the contractors will start at 7 a.m., usually work till just before dark, or 6:37 is kind of their normal time frame. But on County Road 26, with the lay of the land there and everything, the contractor does plan to totally close that road while he's set up And it's in our specs for him to control traffic control during that time. Once he has accomplished his work scope is probably, in a 4-hour period. They need to go up and hang what they call shivs on every pole and then just transfer the wire into that shiv. He's thinking he'll have that road shut down for about a 4-hour period and then remove it and open it back up to traffic. So it's something that wouldn't be shut down 24 hours for the whole month. It's just going to be periodically during the day. And the scope of the work, like I said, is expected to take about 3 to 4 weeks. The timing on that is transferring load, managing load in town. We're going to have our Prairie Station de-energized while they do some of this. So we have to coordinate some of those outages with the load of the town and timing of when we can energize and de-energize some of our structures. So that's kind of a high-level overview of what the plan is and what we're looking at for this year. So generate some questions, I'll take them.
During the shutdown, is there any detour planned for this?
With the
Alternate
short-
routes or?
Typically with the temporary road closures and stuff, we don't do that. Now, we will communicate with the public via Facebook and probably in the paper to kind of coordinate a time when that road is going to be shut down. We know it'll impact a lot of people on that south of town, on that edge of town, so we plan to put that out 3 to 4 days in advance when the contractor plans to do it. But we won't provide a detour though.
It's just more or less informing the public when it'll be shut down.
Yeah. Yep, the contractor will be responsible for all that, for the road.
Are they gonna put the signage, like if they needed to take a different route, instead of putting the signage right where they're at, trying to turn around after is there a way to put signage like right where a turnoff might be, so they could take that direction rather than going there and have to turn around?
Yep, I think for the most part, they'll probably do this project in 3 stages. Not 100% sure on how they'll start, but they could start on 34th Avenue and do the east leg all the way down to County Road 26th. So the remainder of the roads would be open as they're working just on that section. Then they'll probably do County Road 26 next and then Madera last, or however. They're not going to do all 3 legs at the same time. So the biggest impact is going to be on County Road 26, and they're aware of that, so I think they'll plan on having early road traffic notices, before they even get to the intersections, and we'll help them with that too. So we'll have a BMU employee with them all the time and kind of help coordinate that traffic too, making sure. So.
Because you'll have to have some coordination with Bose's asphalt plant there
Correct.
also.
Yep. So we'll communicate with them directly. We'll just let them know for sure how we're going to impact their traffic too. So. Yep.
Brian, any concerns?
No concerns.
Okay. No further questions?
All right. Thanks for your time.
Move on to number 24-20 and an application for occupancy of right-of-way of county highways made by Brookings Municipal Utilities in Madera Township. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
A motion a second. Any further comments? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Item 2, action to approve agreement number 24-21, an application for occupancy of right-of-way of county highways made by Brookings Municipal Utilities in Trenton Township. Do I have a motion to approve?
Second.
A motion a second. Any comments? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Item number 3, action to approve agreement number 24-22, an application for occupancy of right-of-way of county highways made by Brookings Municipal Utilities in Aurora Township. Do I have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
I have a motion and a second. Any comments? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Okay, we got a few minutes here. We'll move on to regular business. Action approved resolution number 24-10, a resolution authorizing the purchase of corrugated metal pipe, bridge materials, and grader blades based upon the price established through the county of Beetle County, South Dakota bid process. Do I have a motion approved?
Move approval?
Have a motion and a second. Any comments?
This was just approved last week by the Beetle County Commission, and if you guys are aware of where their highway department sits and True North Steel, the business lies, it's right across the street, so this would be the best price to purchase off of.
Any other questions for Brian? Hearing none, call the roll.
Krogman?
Aye.
Hostler?
Aye.
Vanderwall?
Aye.
Bartley?
Aye.
Jensen?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Item B, action approve agreement number 24-23, a contract between Brookings County Behavioral Health and First District Association of Local Governments for Community Development Block Grant Administrative Services. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Comments?
This is just for Brookings Behavioral Health's CDBG grant to build their new facility, working with First District as they will be kind of administering this grant. So just another agreement as part of that whole process.
Okay. Any further comments? I think we discussed this a little bit before, so. Being no more comments, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Item C, action to approve agreement number 24-24, a County of Brookings and City of Brookings Limited Public Use Policy. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
A motion and a second. Any comments?
So this policy was drafted by City Attorney Steve Breitzman. It was actually taken to the Joint Powers Board at their recent meeting here in February and was approved at that level first. It basically provides guidelines for individuals who are circulating petitions, maybe distributing campaign material, and any other First Amendment activities that may be happening around this building. This actually does need to go to the city council as well, kind of actually a three-part process for approval of this. Things change a little bit when this becomes an actual absentee voting location. Then those parameters change following the election laws about, having to stay 100 feet away from the building and whatnot. But this is for when this building is not being used for voting, but for those to other types of activities.
I guess in enforcement of this, is this on the employees or?
I think it will be, if there are people doing these types of activities and we become aware of it, which we normally do become aware of it, we'll have this policy in place to be able to tell those individuals where they can and cannot be, basically. So, I see it kind of being handled internally unless it can't be handled, and then I guess we'll get, law enforcement involved. But otherwise, I see it just being kind of on an as-needed basis handled by those of us here in the building.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Item D, action to approve agreement number 24-25, an agreement designating the United Living Community Facilities as an emergency shelter under certain circumstances and amending agreement number 12-05. Do I have a motion to approve?
Move to approve. Second.
Have a motion and a second. Mr. Hill?
Yes, the initial agreement 12-05 was put in place back in 2012 after Brookings County worked with the United Retirement Center back in those days to get a large generator. So as part of that, they worked with emergency management and got an agreement that if there is a major power outage, that the ambulance could take, if the ambulance has got people that needs electricity to operate, such as oxygen machines, they could be taken to the United Retirement Center. All this agreement here is doing, United Living Center now, they changed names. They've done some remodeling. They can't handle as many people as they used to be able to. So they approached us to see if the agreement could be modified. And during the derecho, they was actually utilized, and so they came through my office and wanted to know if it could be changed. Basically, the bottom line is, if needed, the ambulance could take people requiring electricity to the ULC. ULC would provide them a place to hook up, but those individuals coming would be required to bring a caregiver with them, and all the ULC can do is provide a place to hook up the electricity. As far as medical care and all that, they're only set up to take care of their clients, not people coming in from the outside. So, and this agreement just basically gives both the individual coming in, and they can accommodate up to 5 people. And then this agreement allows us to produce like a 3x5 card that we can pass out to individuals on oxygen or whatever, and let them know what to expect if they are picked up by the ambulance and taken to the ULC. What will the individual get from the ULC? And of course, with our agreement being more than 10 years old, we felt it was best to come through and go ahead and update the agreement to the modern times.
Any further comments? No? Thanks, Bob.
You're welcome.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign.
Thank you.
Motion carried. Item E, action to approve agreement number 24-26, an application for occupancy of right-of-way county highway made by Xcel Energy in Richland Township. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any comments?
Excel is planning on putting a second set of wires on existing poles up by the power plant in Richland Township along County Road 36. There's poles on both sides of the road, so I'm sure they're going to have to work in outside the right-of-way just because there's poles on both sides of the road. I'm not exactly 100% sure on how they plan on installing these, if there's going to be any delays in traffic, but I've reached out and I have not heard back yet.
Questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carried. Item F, action to approve agreement number 24-27, an application for occupancy of right-of-way of county highways made by Sioux Valley Energy in Lake Sinai Township. Do I have a motion to approve?
Move to approve. Second.
Have a motion and a second. Comments?
This will be underground and overhead improvements southeast of Sinai along County Road 11 or 217th and 457th.
Any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carried. Item G, action to approve agreement number 24-28, an application for occupancy of right-of-way county highway made by Sioux Valley Energy in Parnell Township. Do I have a motion approved?
So moved.
This is the crossing at County Road 27 or 482nd Avenue and 324, State Highway 324.
Yeah. Comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign, motion carried. Item H, action to approve agreement number 24-29, an application for occupancy of right-of-way county highway made by Sioux Valley Energy in Oslo Township. Do I have a motion approved?
Move to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second.
be a overhead crossing over 464th Avenue or County Road 5 south of Volga.
Okay. Any comments? Hearing none. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carried. Item I, action approve agreement number 24-30, an application for occupancy of the right-of-way, county highway made by Sioux Valley Energy in Oslo Township. Do I have motion approved?
Move approval.
Have motion and second. Comment?
This will be 1 mile of County Road 14th or 219th off of 464 to the west.
Okay. Any questions or comments, Brian? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carried. We have a scheduled 9 o'clock. Banner and Associates, 214th Street Hydrologic and Hydraulic and Feasibility Study Presentation. You guys would like to come forward and introduce yourselves? Proceed.
Waylon Blasius, Banner Associates.
Kent Johnson, Banner Associates.
Tom Cook, HDR Engineering, handled the traffic planning analysis.
Of the process of working with the county from beginning to end of this study, followed by an outline which has bullet points and then referenced figures. Those bullet points are the same bullet points or the same headings that are within the report, but again, just with some more specific conversation topics that we would like to hit on. And then the figures, again, are all of the figures that are already within the report in the back, but they are associated with the various sections of the report. So just for ease of being able to view kind of what we're looking at. With that, we certainly appreciate the opportunity to present the information that's contained in the draft report. Again, want to reiterate that it isn't a finalized report. We certainly welcome the comment from the commission as far as anything that you guys have noted in there that you may look for further clarification on or want to see expanded upon. And then we will deliver a final signed report to the county for the record. So just want to make sure that that's clear. With that, you know, we did discuss with the project team how we would look at presenting today. And I guess our intent is to go through that outline, and obviously if there are comments or questions associated with that you feel immediate clarity is necessary for, then we certainly invite you to interject and ask those questions and make those comments. Otherwise, we'll plan to continue to just roll through the topics to get through our discussion, and then maybe have more formal or informal communication back and forth if that works for the commission. So with that, just to go back to the beginning of this, in an introduction, you know, Banner Associates and HDR Incorporated responded to a request for proposal from Brookings County regarding a scope for evaluating the feasibility of the future reconstruction of 214th Street with hydrologic and hydraulic analysis highlighted in that effort. The project goals for the corridor at that time, as stated in the RFP, were for improved truck and commuter route with a widened and paved roadway, improved drainage considerations, considering surface water management, improved safety and connectivity of pedestrian and vehicular access with the potential increase in residential and commercial development along the corridor. The project team again, as we introduced ourselves, Waylon Blasius with Banner Associates, Kent Johnson with Banner Associates, and Thomas Cook with HDR. There were obviously others within our offices that participated in helping put this information together and do some of the background work as well. From the county side, on the committee were Commissioner Jensen, Commissioner Vanderwall, Director Stephenson, Highway Superintendent Gusted, and then the city of Aurora did participate in 2 meetings with the committee, and participants from those meetings were Mayor Jones, City Maintenance and Utilities Supervisor Mr. Knipe, and then Council Member Ms. Price. And so those largely are the folks that were part of the meetings that were held as this project progressed. And then again, the executive summary, I won't read it verbatim, but it's again a very brief 2-page document, overall view of the study efforts from the RFP to the next steps at the end. And so just at your convenience, you're welcome to read through that as a Cliff's Notes version. If you want to flip to there we go. So that covered the introduction topics A. Item B on the outline there, purpose and need for improvements. Again, figures 1, 2, and 3 are associated with this, which you will find right behind the outline. Project location and corridor growth. 214th Street is the project location. Project that we're looking at runs from Brookings County 21 or 34th Avenue over to Brookings County 23 or Broadway Avenue within the city limits of Aurora. Currently, the road is a gravel surfaced township roadway under the jurisdiction of Trenton and Aurora Townships, although we understand that petitions have been started to potentially relinquish jurisdiction of that roadway to the county. Approximately 1.5 miles of this 3-mile stretch of roadway is within FEMA mapped floodplains, and so that obviously was a large component of the considerations for the hydrology and hydraulic study. And then with the 20th Street interchange being constructed in Brookings, there are plans for commercial development along 20th Street there, as well as residential development in the works in the city of Aurora, which pinpoints the growth that is likely to be seen along this corridor and for the use of this corridor. Brookings County improved Brookings County Road 21 or 34th Avenue in 2015. That project obviously offered an opportunity for bypassing the city of Brookings for users of the county roadway facility, but it also provides an opportunity to drive traffic to this 214th Street. Another area of improvement right here connected to this roadway is the recently constructed interchange at 20th Street South over I-29, a venture that local shareholders, including the county and the DOT, City of Brookings, other stakeholders in the area, and then a federal grant helped complete. A lot of the goals that were associated with that interchange justification study are shared with this corridor improvement venture on 214th Street. If you want to go to figure 2, Stacy. So this map here, and again in the report, it indicates that at the 2020 census, the city of Brookings population was 23,277 people. Aurora, 1,047 people. Both have seen a lot of growth along and south of 20th Street South or 214th Street. This corridor would provide a connection to some major corridors within the city of Brookings that offer routes to the schools, in which Aurora and the surrounding rural county area is all within the Brookings School District. Those schools are shown on that map. It offers a direct route for commuters, for students, and for parents. Secondarily, it's connectivity for workers, work commuters from Aurora to the city of Brookings. So again, that map indicates some of the larger employers along the eastern side of Brookings, in which 214th Street would provide a direct connection to those corridors within the city of Brookings. Between the 5 that are shown on the map within the city of Brookings, there's approximately 5,400 employees between those entities. So a large corridor that could be utilized for commuter traffic from Aurora to Brookings. One of the goals that Brookings County had set forth was improving the truck flow and the abilities for truck traffic to utilize county and state roadways and maneuver through some of the industrial and agricultural entities on eastern Brookings. There's 3 of those shown on the map. There's more that see truck traffic, but Novita, LG Everest, Valero Renewables, there is a cooperative in the city of Aurora that all see truck traffic throughout the county utilizing those roads, and this corridor being improved would offer an opportunity for improved truck traffic flow in that area. And then lastly, on this point, connectivity for multimodal commuters and recreationalists. And so if you go to figure 3, Stacy, this is another item that was identified in the Brookings County Master Transportation Plan that was prepared about 10 years ago now, and identified potential access for pedestrian and recreational bicycle facility from the city of Brookings to the city of Aurora, not directly in this location, but improvements to this corridor does offer that opportunity to improve or to offer recreational bicyclists, commuter bicyclists, pedestrians access from Aurora to Brookings, and access to the 23 miles of commuter and recreational opportunities within Brookings alone. The next item on the outline is data collection. So again, we held a project kickoff meeting with with Brookings County to discuss and verify the goals of the project, ensure that they still aligned with the RFP, and then we established key considerations that would be evaluated within the corridor. Those key considerations are a bulk of what the report is or covers, as you've likely seen if you had an opportunity to take a look through it. Additional data collection that was performed was topographic survey and aerial photography. So Banner did send out surveyors to collect existing roadway topography as far as edge line, center line of roads, and then all of the pertinent information associated with the current drainage crossings to be able to put together and perform an accurate hydraulic model, or as accurate as able. We supplemented the hand survey with LiDAR data that's available for Brookings County, and that all combined helped us make a terrain model that could be used for floodplain modeling, as well as for identifying the footprint for grading efforts for potential configurations of roadway geometrics on the project or on the corridor. A boundary survey was not completed on the project, and so references to right-of-way within the report are generalized just based off of the center line of the road. So that is something that is not exact in the report. Another piece of the data collection was utility presence. So Banner did initiate contact with the utility companies that are known to own utilities through that corridor, and then we followed up with requests for mapping or GIS figures, and then also discussion on the significance of the utility and plans for expansion, and that's covered in a section of the report that we'll discuss here a little bit later. And then Thomas will go over the traffic counts and traffic planning.
Yes, and actually, Stacy, could you go back to the previous figure? So I'll just talk briefly about the data collection. So in terms of the traffic planning and corridor analysis, our main data collection was in the form of intersection turning movement counts. These were collected at Brookings County 21 and 214th Street on the west side of the corridor with existing counts that were taken during the interchange study. On the east side at Redmond Road and Brookings County 23, those were taken last February 2023. And we basically utilized those along with existing roadway segment counts and DOT counts to look at traffic from a peak hour perspective for the morning and evening commute hours, as well as a daily perspective. So with that traffic data contains obviously the number of vehicles, going through those intersections at those times, as well as the direction the traffic is heading, vehicle classification, percentage of truck traffic, et cetera, and then if there's any bicycle or pedestrian traffic. In addition to that traffic data, which form the basis of our traffic volumes and our forecasted volumes into the future, we also did a crash history review. This looked at crash records that the DOT has available online for years 2018 to 2022 along the corridor. So I'll kind of just move into the traffic and corridor planning analysis section item. So it's really made up of three components, the first being the crash history review. So again, these were looking at crash records that the DOT has available from years 2018 to 2022. And the main point with this item is that there's really minimal crash history along the corridor in that time. There's a total of 4 crashes, none of which were fatal or severe injury, and all of which occurred largely at different locations. So there's no major safety trend to identify based on current records. So I'll move into the traffic volumes and forecasts, which is what you see on the figure being shown currently. Want to note that, like I mentioned, these are built off the traffic counts that we took and utilized from previous studies. We looked at 2 different scenarios, one being 2023 existing conditions. So this is looking at the roadway as it was last year prior to the interchange opening. And then we forecasted out to a 2045 design year to look at what the traffic's expected to be with the interchange opening and the attractiveness of that corridor, and what we think the needs will be due to that. So with the 2023 existing condition scenario, if you look on your screen, the white rectangular boxes denote the daily traffic volumes currently. So between 34th Avenue and Broadway in Aurora, you can see that the corridor ranges from about 100 vehicles per day to roughly 1,000 as you get into Aurora. The bubbles on the figure represent AM and PM peak hour commute turning movements at the intersection. I'll largely focus on the daily volumes, but happy to answer questions on the turning movements as well. So then moving into the 2045 design year, it's really built off of several assumptions and growth factors. The first being, and namely that the interchange has now opened and it's drawing people to the corridor. So first we want to take initial traffic growth to the year 2045. This is annualized growth using DOT growth factors that they develop for each county in the state as well as each individual roadway type in each county. So it's very specific. And we also utilized the forecasted volumes from the interchange study and corresponded that as 214th Street and 34th Avenue was a study intersection in that study as well. So that's kind of our basis, and then we move into accounting for traffic pattern shifts that account for the opening of the interchange, the attractiveness of another connection to I-29, as well as the city of Brookings, and then assuming future paved road conditions with that. Additionally, the forecasts that we developed for 2045 also incorporate future Aurora development of both residential and employment land uses, so we're trying to incorporate some growth in Aurora as well. So just briefly on this figure, I want to note that the 2045 design year or the future year volumes that we based our analysis and corridor recommendations on are shown in the dark blue rectangular boxes. So based on our forecasting and design assumptions, we're anticipating about 4,000 vehicles a day on this corridor in the 2045 design year. So I will then move into the corridor planning recommendations just briefly if you want to go to the next figure. And just to note on this figure, this includes the 2045 design volumes only, as well as operational analysis information and our corridor recommendations. This is just focusing solely on the recommendations piece. So really, for the recommendations, again, the basis is that 4,000 vehicles per day traffic volumes that we forecasted, as well as some design assumptions, including an assumed design speed of 60 miles per hour, anticipated commuter and truck vehicle users, and then we utilized in conjunction with that information, typical section, multimodal and access recommendations from several resources, including primarily the Brookings County Master Transportation Plan, as well as the interchange study, and then DOT resources as well with that. So then I'll move into the recommendations piece. So for the corridor itself, based on, again, those design assumptions, the traffic volumes, and best practices and guidance, we recommended a roadway section that is consistent with a rural minor arterial highway, which is what this is classified as in the Brookings Master Transportation Plan and the major roads plan within that plan. Based on the traffic volumes, the number of through lanes needed is a 2 lanes, so it would be a 2-lane highway. We recommend a lane width of 12 feet, as well as a shoulder width of 8 feet, and in areas where right-of-way might be constrained, we recommend considering 6 feet if needed. Looking at the multimodal improvements, as Waylon mentioned, we recommend installing an 8 to 10-foot shared use path. This recommendation is based on the goal of a multimodal path connection between the city of Brookings and Aurora that was identified in the master transportation plan. It also is a sensible connection as the shared use path, there was a shared use path constructed with the interchange project along the south side of 20th Street that becomes 214th, so it would be a natural connection opportunity. In addition, we looked at some access management practices in the Brookings County MTP and identified guidelines and best practices to follow. And then briefly, we did look at the 2 study intersections noted on the figure above. We also made recommendations in terms of intersection traffic control and turn lanes. I think the big thing to note for 214th Street and 34th Avenue, signalization is anticipated to be needed prior to this 2045 design scenario. And then the turn lanes that are shown are either partially constructed because they were constructed with the interchange project or are warranted by that time. And I should note with that those recommendations are consistent with what was anticipated from the interchange study as well. And then for Redmond Road and Broadway in Aurora, really the only recommendation is to add a southbound right turn lane that is warranted based on traffic volumes. So I think with that, I'll hand it over to Kent and Waylon.
Quick question, you might be answering it later. Did HDR also do the interchange study as far as traffic?
We
flow?
did, yes. We help with the traffic, yep.
Did that stop at the interchange on 20th Street South and 34th, or did it continue traffic counts in that study all the way up to Aurora?
It did not continue to Aurora, so it included as a study intersection 214th and 34th Avenue. That's why we really tried to compare the information used in that study, and we utilized a traffic count from that study for that intersection. So we tried to utilize as much information from that over there as we could, but that's why we needed a new traffic count in Aurora, because we didn't have that information that far east.
So somewhere along this project, obviously the interchange is open now, so we're going to have probably get a more accurate count as we move along with this process. You do anticipate another traffic study in that intersection? I know it's a bad road, but.
Right.
So I would say, if I can interject here,
Go for it, sir.
so one of the challenges with an additional traffic study as part of this was, right, that the interchange wasn't open as well as 34th Avenue was closed down, and so it kind of threw that time frame where that traffic count would have taken place in order to be able to contribute to the recommendations for typical section, which is kind of the first step in laying out the corridor and in identifying floodplain mapping. Just the way that those, I guess, correlated together, it didn't necessarily offer an opportunity for additional traffic count. I do know off the record, as far as from this report is concerned, that the Brookings County Highway Department has been taking some traffic counts on 214th Street now that the interchange is open. But again, those are not incorporated in this report. So yes, at some point in time in the future, it would be anticipated that additional traffic analysis may be necessary, although I do not believe that impacts the projections for the 2045 projected traffic volumes, which is what design criteria would be based off of.
Correct.
Yeah, no, thank you for the question. That was a very good question. Stacy, if you would like to switch to figure 5, please. Thank you. So figure 5 contains 2 sheets. There's 4 typical sections that were discussed amongst the project team, inclusive of the county commission committee members, in which were analyzed or evaluated through this corridor. So the typical sections are denoted as T1, T2, T3, and T4, and that becomes valuable later in the report when we start combining typical sections with roadway grades and structure scenarios, and ultimately potential project costs. Typical section 1 follows almost to a T what Thomas described as the recommendation based off of DOT and Brookings County Master Transportation Plan recommendations, which is 12-foot lanes with 8-foot shoulders, the 6-foot asphalt pavement and 12-foot base course. I do want to note that is, again, strictly based off of what Brookings County recommends in their master transportation plan for that roadway section. Geotechnical exploration efforts were not done as part of this project, and so that would need to take place in order to actually identify what section is necessary, but it's appropriate for a county highway. The typical section 2 incorporates a dedicated shared use path off of the right or south, or I guess eastbound lane, south side of the roadway. You can see there's a 2-foot separation rumble strip that would also be striped and allows a dedicated shared use path to be incorporated on the roadway. Typical section 3, which is on the next sheet, Stacy, incorporates a separated shared use path. So again, this would have the 12-foot lanes and 8-foot shoulders with a separated shared use path. This separation distance and shared use path matches what is currently on the west side of Brookings County 21 and 214th Street, which would be the east end of the interchange project. So this would continue the same separation from edge of roadway and same shared use path section through 214th Street corridor. And then typical section 4 is after discussion with the project team, we identified that establishing kind of a baseline for a minimum improvement project through this corridor that we would evaluate typical section 4, which is 12-foot lanes with 2-foot shoulders. I do believe that there's a note at the bottom of this one that indicates that this does not meet any criteria based off of the projected ADT for roadway classification for safety specifics and is not necessarily recommended, but again, does provide a good baseline. To build this corridor through here, there's 3 components. There's the typical section, the horizontal geometrics and vertical geometrics. Thomas noted that a 60-mile-an-hour design speed was utilized in some of the evaluating criteria. Just to point out, a 60-mile-per-hour design speed is usually assigned to roadways that are signed at 55 miles an hour, so it offers that additional safety beyond what the roadway is signed at. We aren't necessarily recommending the road to be signed at any certain speed. It's just a standard practice, and again, in the RFP, it did indicate that existing road is signed varies from 35 to 55 miles an hour, and it should be anticipated that would remain the same. So that is the basis of the 60-mile-an-hour design speed, 55-mile-an-hour signed roadway. With ADT projected at 4,000, horizontal geometry should, at a minimum, meet AASHTO design criteria for any horizontal curves. Obviously, on this stretch of roadway, there isn't any deflection angles that require curvature, but it also identifies the location within the right-of-way in which the roadway should be placed. Again, with the typical sections, in general, roadway would be placed in the center of right-of-way, so you have maximum opportunity for maintenance on both sides of the roads. Now, if a shared use path separated from the roadway was pursued, then you may want to look at adjusting the alignment so that way the impacts are kept somewhat similar on each side of the roadway rather than pushing them all to the south side or eastbound lane. Vertical geometrics, again, it would be recommended that they meet any AASHTO criteria for a 60-mile-an-hour design speed with this ADT that would include stopping sight distance, passing sight distance. Those are critical safety factors on a roadway that could see that much traffic, including truck traffic. Additionally, present day, the roadway is subject to overtopping of water. Obviously, in the county's interest for longevity and viability of maintaining that roadway, it would be recommended that the roadway profile be adjusted to minimize the frequency of that overtopping, as well as minimize the amount of time that water sits next to the roadway section, saturating the section and ultimately degrading the roadway. And then lastly, with the vertical profile, maintenance as far as snow removal effort and those types of things significantly decrease when you separate the road elevation from the adjacent ground elevation. So incorporating additional grade on that roadway to be able to raise it up from the adjacent ground is another vertical grade line recommendation.
All right, you mind switching to the next photo? All right, we've got the floodplain shown here. This is the 2008 effective FEMA map. The preliminary mapping is not shown on this map, and that's expected to become effective here in the next year or so, I believe, 2025, by the time everybody adopts new floodplain ordinances and accepts the new map. But we used FEMA's model, which was used to develop that new mapping as the basis for our hydraulic study. As you can see, this is an expanding floodplain. This effective map probably increases in boundaries when you go into the new mapping, probably at least 10%. We've got Deer Creek, another tributary coming out of Aurora, and this all drains eventually to the Big Sioux River, but the drainage coming in from Aurora drains directly to Madera Creek south of this point, and then Deer Creek drains, and some of it just kind of goes south to Madera Creek, but then there's a small portion that also drains underneath the interstate and picks up some other city drainage and eventually drains to the Big Sioux River. So we looked at a few different scenarios for grade line based on DOT standards for 25-year, which would be more like a state highway, and then also some 10-year designs, which is more township or county road design standard for elevation and overtopping. So these different grade lines, I believe we looked at 4 of them: the 25-year, 10-year, and another 10-year that made some additional adjustments, and then just used the existing scenario as well. So those 4 for grade line, and then 4 different structure options too. And I'll get into those in a little bit more detail. But essentially, when you raise the road, you're creating a dam through the floodplain, and you would need to counterbalance that by increasing structure size. And when we were looking at the 25-year design, that first grade line scenario, we were seeing quite a few impacts, raising the water surface elevation upstream about over 1 foot in a lot of areas. So that kind of signaled to us that we need to maybe take another look at design standards, lowering them to maybe a 10-year design, for instance, and looking at several structure options for that as well. And I'll just maybe go into the structure options here as well. The first structure scenario was basically doubling the existing structure sizes that are in the 214th currently, and there's about 312 square feet as far as culvert flow area existing, so we increased that to about 720 square feet. And then the next scenario, we doubled that size again, so we're quadrupled the existing structure sizes. And then that third scenario, we took a little bit closer look at what's upstream going through the railroad and tried to make some comparisons and use structure sizes that were equivalent to that. And then the fourth scenario was basically bringing it back down to the existing structure sizes as well. So if you wouldn't mind going to the next sheet. Okay, again, here's the drainage area. We've got about 100 square miles of total drainage area draining through this stretch of 214th Street. That Aurora tributary's got about 6 square miles, and then we've got over 60 square miles draining down through the Deer Creek drainage basin. That Deer Creek drainage basin, that kind of weaves in and out of the tributaries that are contained within it. That happens upstream by Bushnell, and it continues to happen down south of the railroad. So that's kind of a complicating factor in this. We like to try to keep drainage going the same way it had been during existing conditions. So that's kind of a tough thing to do when you're raising a road and putting structures in the roadway to maintain. So if you go to the next sheet, again, here's some of those drainage patterns. I don't know that we need to dwell on this figure much. Just go to the next one, please. And here's some of the existing structure sizes that are around that study area. This doesn't show all the structure sizes in 214th Street. Now you can go back to that drainage area. I wanted to see those, so I don't think we need to do that here. Right? Keep on going forward if you want. That's next one. Yeah, down on the lower right, you'll see a table that has all the existing structure sizes in the existing 214th Street. So yeah, now go a couple pages ahead here. Next one, right there. Thank you. Okay, so that was that. This is the grade line we used along 214th Street. Aurora's on the left side, and as you move right across this graph, that's where you get into 34th Street is where it ends. So that first grade line, you'll see they all match on the left side of the graph, that top blue line, and then it turns dashed. That's where that 25-year continued, and down below that dashed line is where we pulled off and went down to a 10-year overtopping standard, and then you'll see a little yellow portion of that. That's that other 10-year scenario we used. And you can move to the next sheet now. Okay, here's the different structure size options we used. We doubled the size, that's S1, and then we quadrupled the size of existing culverts, and then we looked at the railroads size for determining structure sizes through 214th Street. That's S3, and then S4 is just basically the existing structure sizes and included in basically a do-nothing analysis. But also in this figure, we have the costs associated with that, with the options we were looking at. We're at about $2.5 million in that S1 category, and then as we quadruple the size of structures, significantly increase the cost of project. We've got $5.3 million, and then S3, the railroad comparison structure sizes, we're all the way up to $9 million. So it's important to note that the floodplain impacts are directly related to this. S1, the doubling the structure sizes, we have significant floodplain impacts both upstream and downstream. And as we move to the right, S2, we're reducing those floodplain impacts a little bit, but we really don't get any significant impact, reduction in the floodplain impacts till we get to the railroad ones. So I guess in all those structure and grade line alternatives we analyzed, we're trying to balance it out so we have a reduction in floodplain impacts. So these are the range of costs associated with those. You can go to the next sheet. Okay. Yeah, get some.
And just to follow up a little bit on what Kent had there with the grade lines and then the structure scenarios, those two combined obviously offer alternative results. And so Kent indicated profile number one, the one that would was initially established to meet the 25-year design criteria, 1 foot of freeboard from what the floodplain elevation was. That incorporated with even structure size number 3, which is the equivalent to the railroad structures. It reduces the upstream floodplain impact, but it significantly increases the downstream impact, which obviously has to be a consideration with this as well. A lot of the impacts associated are identified for the floodplain, but conveying from 5 72-inch pipe to 150-foot long bridges, the amount of water that's conveyed through obviously has to be considered also. So. We can certainly find that out, Larry. We have the sizes on there, but I don't know that I could do the math in my head fast enough to give you a good answer to that.
Because you mentioned on 214th, it's 106.
300.
A little over 300. Yeah.
Okay. And you wouldn't have 215 then either.
Yeah, I don't know what the total square footage of those are, Larry. We did go out and, or Commissioner Jensen, sorry, we did go out and measure all of those in order to allocate them on that map of upstream and downstream crossings, but we did not total the square footage of crossing area.
Just one of those structures downstream on 215th Street is about, what is that? About 180 square feet just for one of them.
Right.
Crossing Deer Creek.
Because you keep referring to the railroad structures, which are quite large. The 213th Street is similar, a roadway also, be comparable to the railroad drainage. I mean, the railroad's built significantly oversized to accommodate the railroad, of course, but I guess matching 213 and 215 would be a goal, in my opinion, to a similar number of square footage to alleviate your flooding issues.
Yeah, and I think it's important to understand there's a regulatory aspect of sizing those as far as DOT standards, and then as well as the floodplain impacts. And if you're increasing floodplain elevations above a certain point, 1 foot, we're in a zone A area here, that would trigger, a conditional letter of map revision with FEMA, and that would all have to happen before a project goes forward. The timeline for that's about a year to 18 months. I would err on the 18 months just to get that approved before you move forward with the project, the bid and everything. And then after you're done with the project, you still have to follow up with the letter of map revision. Now, if you're reducing those impacts to less than a foot, it's up to the county if you need to move forward with that CLOMAR, the conditional letter of map revision. But if they don't require and it's a less than one foot, you're still meeting the Code of Federal Regulations for floodplain requirements in the county. The cost for submitting a conditional letter of map revision is about anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000, and then FEMA has review fees on top of that. they're contained in the report. They're, I'll say roughly $10,000 for each submittal. And then, again, after you get done constructing the project, it's up to the floodplain administrator for the county, but they may request you do a floodplain or a letter of map revision at the end as well.
And I think a good thing that we could do is we'll total up the square footage of those crossings that we show on that map, and we'll have a table on that map for the final report. That way that's included and can be compared to what's existing on 214th plus the proposed structure sizing.
Here you talk about raising it a foot. What is that for? What is that, T1, T2, or what is the foot?
T1, I believe, was that first grade line. We were trying to meet a 25-year design, and that, so how we set that is, we look at the 25-year water elevation. It's overtopping the road, so we started out just raising the initial grade line a foot over that 25-year, and then we're setting structures in there and running that through the model to see what the impacts are. And when you do that, it raises that water surface elevation. That's the impact I'm talking about, over 1 foot in the model. So that's what triggers that map revision requirement. And the map revision requirement is to, one, to get an accurate map, but two, to inform people that are paying flood insurance in the upstream or downstream that their flood elevations are changing, and if they have insurable structures, that would increase their flood insurance costs too.
Is there are we talking T1, T2, so T2 would not raise it a foot, or?
So first, I do also want to clarify. So the Ts are for the typical sections, which is just the roadway width and stuff. The P1, P2, P3, P4 is the profiles, which are shown on that graph, which would be the roadway grade line. And I think they're called alternative 1 profile, alternative 2 profile, alternative 3 profile on that figure.
Yep.
10. Sorry. And then I'll let you talk. I just want to make sure.
Quick question on the section picture of T1 and shows a shared walking path or the path.
Yep.
Both T1 and T2 show that 8-foot dedicated path. Then we go to T3 and it shows a path that has a separation of 5 feet from the roadway. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Does that require that roadway to be a little bit higher so that the path isn't underwater? I mean, we've had a problem in town where we had a path South Main that was underwater 90% of the time, it seemed like.
Sure, yeah.
They
So
had to raise that up, so it's a design fault or just, I don't know what happened there, but I'd hate to invest in a path to Aurora and have it underwater. So is that going to increase the cost to raise it, put that path in so it stays out of the flood?
So those considerations would have to be taken into account, yes. And the elevation of that path could be related to I guess I would call the design model. Once a profile structure, profile elevation structure layout and typical section is pursued, then that elevation could be related to the water surface elevation on the downstream side of the road in the water or in the model to see at what frequency it would be underwater and or how often. But one thing I do want to note is the typical sections themselves have very little to do with the floodplain impacts. The profiles, which would be raising the roadway and damming up the floodplain, and then the structure layouts are really the only two that have impact to the floodplain. The typical sections themselves are more so for safety, for usability, and then obviously cost in the end. So
That's what each scenario is going to impact it different. We looked at these typical grading sections, and we'd have to pick out a favorable one that we were in agreement with. Once we look at that, then look at what we want to decide for structures. But as we apply for grant, if I'm understanding this right, you want to keep your options open, so you look at all your options. Once you look at all your options, it shows you've showed interest. I mean, to make your, basically your application, more fluent or,
Yeah, no, that's a fair statement. So, if, if the project were to look for funding sources outside of local funding, a lot of the requirements associated or tied to those funding sources, require you to have multiple alternatives that are evaluated, just as importantly from an environmental impact standpoint as anything else. And then once that initial environmental, assessment is completed on the alternatives that are part of a preliminary feasibility study, then a preferred alternative is identified for grant writing purposes. So yes, if looking for outside funding, identifying multiple options and then narrowing that down based off of impacts is what you would want to pursue.
because that's, we kind of went, narrowed it down to 3 options, and then which one we would prefer would be the best alternative to evaluate, I guess.
Right, yeah, so you guys, yes, as a commission, or as a committee, or however you would decide to structure that, you would identify what your goals are, what you are trying to, achieve with the corridor, and what you're accepting of as far as, floodplain impacts, water surface elevation, overtopping, all that sort of stuff. Reduce that to a few alternatives, and then evaluate those from an environmental standpoint, to ensure that they are constructible through the corridor.
On the typical grading sections here, is the right-of-way needed, to build? Is the right-of-way requirement, the same, or is, the width different?
Sure, so I can touch on that a little bit. So the existing right-of-way through there is 66 feet, just statutory right-of-way. In general, the county's minimum right-of-way on county highways is 80 feet. And then actually in the master transportation plan for the minor arterial road, which this is classified as, the county recommends 100 feet of right-of-way in your document. As far as that's concerned, on the sheets in front of you, there's a yellow short dashed line, which is the existing right-of-way, a longer dashed line outside of that, which is an 80-foot right-of-way, and then a green, even longer dashed line, which is a 100-foot right-of-way. There are some various typical section and profile combinations that are shown on there that jog in and out throughout the corridor. And as you can see, there, for improvements beyond the existing grade line, constructing at the existing grade line, nearly all of them will, or all of them will have grading footprints outside of the existing right-of-way and require, or it would be recommended that you would acquire at least the minimum 80-foot right-of-way to ensure that you're containing drainage, ditches within the county's right-of-way, for you're allowing yourself to meet clear zone requirements for the ADT and speeds associated, for maintenance of those structures and that sort of stuff. If we look at the widest typical section, which is the separated shared use path with the highest grade line, it does encroach well out beyond the 80-foot right-of-way. Again, that's I don't want to necessarily state that that there's a recommended, typical section 3 and profile 3 for that. Obviously, they all have their benefits and drawbacks. But yes, Larry, or Commissioner Jensen, I apologize. There are typical section profile combinations. The narrowest with the lowest profile that would remain within the 80-foot right-of-way, if that is the largest consideration.
We also talked within the city limits, the right-of-way could be adjusted.
Correct. So, did you have more on that, or?
No.
Okay. Yes. So, as far as within the city limits of Aurora, obviously, the first step of that would be identifying where that jurisdiction would lie, if there were an improvement project to be had on 214th Street and in Redmond Road. But it is much more constrained. So the impacts through the rural section are less significant. So we have the mining pits on the west end, productive farmland through the central portion, and then some residential tree impacts on the eastern end, but again, largely inconsequential. Once you get within the city of Aurora, expanding the existing 66-foot right-of-way to even 80-foot starts to get very close to the front door of houses that are built along that corridor. And then again, if you expanded that to 100, you may be in the front living room. And so those discussions, obviously, again, first with the jurisdiction of that right-of-way, and then secondarily, if it would be a consideration to reduce the footprint within the city of Aurora based off of lower speed roadway, but it also complicates if you incorporate shared use opportunities or multimodal opportunities from 34th Avenue to the city limits and then incorporate that onto the street. So again, those types of, there is an option to improve the roadway all the way to Brookings County 23 and adjust that footprint accordingly at the city limit line. It just impacts the outcome. Stacy, if you want to, there's 6 figures here with right-of-way, and again, those show some of those various, so the T1, P1 would be typical section 1, profile 1, and then following that same indexing through there. Largely, the specifics of this, these grading limits aren't going to be exact. This is all part of the study and assigning the typical sections to the roadway grade line alternatives. An actual design profile would not be exactly where we have these profiles laid today, because it would be dependent on exactly what the ultimate goal and cost of the project would be. But it does give you an idea, and there's an example of in the city of Aurora there where that existing right-of-way is well into their yard. 80 foot would again encroach even further, and 100 would be at the garage door. So I guess the next item that's spoken to in the report is the utility coordination. So as noted in the data collection, we reached out and inquired about utility mapping or utility locations for the utilities that are known to be present in the corridor. Many of these utilities, or I shouldn't say many, a few of these utilities are major utilities. This is a good utility corridor for utility companies serving Brookings and Aurora to have a straight shot to Aurora without a paved roadway, and largely no improvements done to impact their utilities requiring an adjustment or relocation. I would note that likely any improvement in this area outside of doing nothing would require utility coordination and likely adjustment or relocation of many of the utilities that utilize this corridor, and that's largely because it would be removing existing surfacing and removing saturated or unstable material within the corridor, in which that would either decrease cover necessary for utilities or completely get into the elevation at which the utility lies. So just to note that some expansion opportunities that the utility company is looking at through this corridor. Largely there's a water line on the west end of this corridor that's stubbed out just east of 34th Avenue. There is potential for future expansion of that water line from 34th Avenue to the city of Aurora. The electrical utility indicated that obviously any development through this area that's outside of city jurisdiction, they would intend on expanding their footprint in order to serve that development. And then the city of Aurora themselves currently are in the process of putting together design plans and nearly bidding out a utility improvement project on Redmond Road there, which will incorporate some roadway reconstruction efforts within the city limits there. That isn't the only utility improvement project that's potentially on the horizon for the city of Aurora. They've also indicated potential sanitary sewer and then water main improvements just due to the growth that they've seen over the past decade to 15 years both of those which would have impacts that occur along 214th Street or Redmond Road there in Aurora. So there's one utility, the electrical utility, that's outside of the existing right-of-way and in a private easement that requires coordination from the entity that's looking to improve the roadway in order to, if it's necessary, to relocate or adjust that utility because it is not in the public right-of-way. All of the other utilities are understood to be within the public right-of-way.
All right, we had a preliminary environmental report also done, and that just goes over the impacts to species and cultural resources. The current conditions and potential impacts are described for each resource. This is included as Appendix B in the preliminary draft report.
It's not in this document, Stacy. It's
No,
in just the
yeah.
general report. We're just referencing it's a part of the report.
While impacts to all resources were considered, only those which could be impacted are described. So that first section just lists the species. There's about 7 federally listed species that are potentially impacted, or it just states which species are in the area. There are no listed state threatened or endangered species. And then as far as the cultural resources, a search of the SHPO database revealed no historic or archaeological structures within the study area. As the project moves forward, a level 1 record search would be completed, and as well as a level 3 cultural survey would be conducted for any locations along the project corridor. The environmental report also addressed surface waters and wetlands, and the report identifies what potential impacts would be as far as filling wetlands or waterways and that sort of thing. If any fill does end up in a wetland, we'd need to go through the permitting process through the Corps, and if any mitigation is needed, that also would be through the Corps as well. Environmental report also covered floodplains. Again, this is designated as a Zone A, 100-year floodplain, and also there's groundwater resources impacted or in the corridor, and land use. So land use just discusses if there's farmland impacts, you'd have to go through not only maybe easements or anything, but national NRCS as well for determining those impacts. Future considerations and next steps with agencies, you'd have also agency and tribal coordination to obtain their comments and recommendations on avoidance and minimization for environmental resources. The permitting requirements include a Section 404 permitting under the Clean Water Act, as well as, like, for instance, a SWIP or a Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan and a stormwater permit with the DANR. Also, Brookings County floodplain would need a floodplain development permit and any associated FEMA submittals. And again, we'd need a level 1 record search and a level 3 survey to be completed, as well as utility survey and coordination. Coordination with local utility companies would be required to move forward or reinstall affected utilities by the project. And that's essentially the preliminary environmental report.
And so with that again just indicated the likely environmental considerations for the project, but those resources weren't evaluated for any particular alternatives on this. Obviously, that would take place once it's narrowed down to a select number of alternatives, and then the resources be evaluated. Otherwise, there would be a significant number of reports to be submitted for each alternative. So, thanks, Kent. So then, what Stacy has shown on the screen here is an indexing guide for alternative analysis. So again, this is where I indicated that once we get to the evaluation matrices and the cost estimates, it can be quite cumbersome to put all of those different alternatives together. And so this is how we decided to present them. So the typical sections are described therein and identified: T1, T2, T3, T4. The roadway profile or grade line, which would be the elevation in which the roadway would sit, again described and denoted P1, P2, P3, P4, and then the structure layouts. You'll notice, again, just to point this out, T4, P4, and S4 all are what we would call minimum improvements to the roadway. So just again, setting a baseline for even what minimum improvements to this roadway would look like moving forward. If you want to flip to the next sheet there, Stacy. So you can see that these alternatives were combined in series to produce opinions of probable project cost summary. The profiles 2 and 3, the cost change in those was insignificant based off of the small amount of earthwork change. That would really be the only change in the profile, and that was to optimize some floodplain impacts. And so those are under the same line item there. But otherwise, I guess you can see, the minimum improvement that may be necessary for this roadway falls right there above the $5 million mark, and then all the way up to the significant improvements with significant typical sections and profiles and structures associated is upward of $20 million. There's also a local and federal cost share column on this sheet. Again, none of that is guaranteed, although the 20%, 80% local federal cost share is common for some of the federal grant funding programs. And so that gives a little bit better idea of what a local cost share could be were there to be a successful grant application at some point in time in the future. And it also allows you guys to see that the potential short-term local funding cost versus a maybe longer-term shared cost. Many assumptions were made in creating these cost estimates, although we did model this roadway corridor with the typical sections and at the grade lines associated in a design model, and calculated approximate earthwork calculations. We were able to identify all of the surfacing needs based off of the assumed typical section, and then of course some of the other factors with right-of-way acquisition, and those items are to be determined based off of the alternative that the county would move forward with. And then lastly, Kent indicated the structure costs are shown independently prior in the report within the hydraulics and hydrology portion of the report. Those are included in this. So just to clarify that those numbers aren't for the whole project itself, that's just the structure costs associated. You'll notice that even while maintaining the existing structure size, there's a cost associated, and I guess that is due to the fact that likely any improvements to this roadway would require the structures, recommended that they would be replaced in order to handle the traffic and the loading anticipated for the roadway, but beyond that, to meet clear zone requirements for the minimum offset from the edge of the traveled way to the end of the structure, they currently aren't long enough to meet those requirements, and so it would require structure replacement if you were to invest in improving the roadway. So as far as next steps are concerned, we identified 3 next steps that are typical for this stage of the process, right? And the first one would be do nothing. And now that assuming These all assume that at some point in time, the county obtains jurisdiction of the roadway. So do nothing would be minimal improvements, so increasing the surfacing depth out there as far as the gravel surfacing is concerned and reshaping the roadway to improve the safety of the roadway as the county sees fit to offer it as a traveled way under county jurisdiction, but no other improvements. Obviously, that offers the shortest term turnaround because that can be done, in about any point in time. It also has the least amount of impacts because there's not changes to the roadway grade line. There's not impacts to utilities, to right-of-way, to the floodplain, to those types of situations. There's no structure replacement, but it doesn't achieve any of the goals that the county set forth for the project or the corridor. So that's always an alternative in any venture, is to just do nothing and leave it as is. And the next alternative would be to fund something locally. Again, funding a project locally would require the county likely to, or it would be in the county's interest to hold a public input meeting or establish a advisory committee to aid the commission in identifying exactly what improvement was feasible for local funding, and then seek support from other local entities that could benefit from an improvement to this roadway and or from the Department of Transportation in order to provide an improvement. This again largely would increase the safety of the roadway in present day, but it may come back to be a less safe roadway if the projected ADT utilizes the roadway in the future, because then you're putting a lot of traffic on a roadway that isn't built to support that traffic in regard to lane width and shoulder width and elevation and that sort of stuff. The next steps for approaching funding a project locally would be, again, to identify the alternatives that wanted to be considered further, and then consulting and professionals to take a preliminary design step towards the project, identify the impacts to all of the key considerations that are laid out within this report, remediate as many of those key considerations as possible, and understand the impacts that it will have if they cannot be mitigated, and then follow through with the final design and construction of a project. The timeline of a project like this, again, if immediate consultation with professionals was established, it's reasonable to expect it could be constructed within 5 years, but obviously that would be dependent on if funding or financing is appropriated and in place at this time, and in that an agreement on an alternative layout was in place as well. The third alternative would be to seek outside funding. And the seek outside funding, that is obviously, if there's an alternative that the county looks to pursue that's beyond what the county can fund locally, the next steps in something like that would be to first garner local support, garner support from the adjacent entities that would benefit from a project, similar to what the county did on the interchange project with the other entities that were involved with that. From there, the county would look at consulting with professionals for the environmental aspect of evaluating the fewer alternatives and ultimately identifying a preferred alternative based off of the environmental impacts and analysis associated with that. And then working with the grant writing to write a grant application for a federal grant program, following all those program requirements, and then ultimately hoping for the success of that grant application. Many of those federal grant applications, again, are very competitive, and they're offered to entities all across the United States, and so it does take a strong collaborative local effort, as well as support from the entities in the area and the State Department of Transportation in order to go down that venture, but it's certainly achievable, as we all can be witness to with this interchange project. Beyond that, then it follows the same steps as far as preliminary design, evaluating impacts to the key considerations, remediating or mitigating those impacts as much as possible, following the framework of the grant program to complete a final design project. The DOT would then take responsibility of the construction of the project because they would be the ones administering the federal grant dollars and carry it through the construction project and then return the jurisdiction over to the county entity at the end of the project. The timeline on that obviously may vary again greatly based off of what the actual impacts are and the alternatives selected. But assuming a successful grant application, it can be reasonably expected that a project could be completed within 8 years of initiating the decision-making on those initial alternatives to be further analyzed. And again, that is based off of, as Kent indicated, if there's CLOMAR requirements with floodplain impacts, that requires 18 months in and of itself. There's right-of-way acquisition, utility coordination, where you would likely like to see the utilities relocated or adjusted prior to any sort of construction for a project like this, and then any other mitigation that's necessary on the project. So Stacy, if you want to jump to the next couple sheets. And I should note on that, there are 3 existing funding programs shown in the report. Those are 3 current federal grant programs that would be potential programs for a project like this to submit a grant application for. They've all got very similar requirements. Some of them federal grants offer planning and design grant programs, and some of them offer just construction. Obviously, that would be another decision for the county to make whether they wanted to pursue the preliminary design with local funds and then just apply for a bid-ready or construction-ready grant, or pursue the design grant and follow through the process in the framework of the grant program assigned. So this, there's 2 scenario evaluation matrices. Matrix A here shows typical section and profile combination scenarios, and then, you know, how those scenarios are evaluated against some of the goals set forth in the project. The geometric and typical section goals, the right-of-way considerations, utility coordination, and then the potential costs. So again, these can you know, be analyzed as the commission moves forward with trying to identify potential alternatives to pursue based off of ultimately what goals you desire to achieve. And then the matrix B is more closely aligned with the hydraulics and hydrology and the performance of the profile and structure combinations of their impacts on the floodplain, their ability to convey the 10-year and 25-year and 100-year storm events, the potential needs for development permits, CLOMARs and LOMARs, and then upstream and downstream impacts. So again, you know, ultimately, we hope that contained within this report is information that the commission can use to make decisions on the next step moving forward as far as what you have for goals and would like to see for improvements of this roadway, obviously associated with the potential impacts tied to it and the costs associated with that. We certainly look forward to opportunity to work with you through each of those steps to achieve a successful project down the road. It is, and a significant part of it was the hydraulics and hydrology. Obviously, that floodplain and the impacts of the floodplain is a huge part of this, and really a driving force, obviously, ideally. it's just raise the road up to what you're comfortable with, put the pipe in and build it, right? But that's not how it works in a floodplain. So that was a significant part of our effort on the project. Obviously, the modeling was, initially the FEMA model took 36 hours or something like that to run one iteration. We were able to input some parameters on it that reduced that runtime, but so yeah, we welcome any other conversation. Otherwise, we'll let you carry on.
Oh,
I would say we don't have any recommendations at this time, Commissioner Krogman, and that's largely just based off of, there's going to be a lot of variable opinions on exactly what this corridor should and could look like, especially now that the cost is out there and available. And obviously, again, the recommendation would be, the alternative that provides the most access for the least cost. And I think working through them, there is a happy medium that Commissioner Jensen, Commissioner Vanderwall, and Highway Superintendent Gustad and ourselves discussed in our meetings, and it falls in line with some of those profile 2 or 3 and structure layout 2, and then the typical section. Of course, like I said, it has minimal impact to the actual hydraulic analysis, and so it's really a dedicated shared use path a priority? Is it not? Obviously, we don't recommend the minimum typical section on the existing grade line or the minimum structure layout, because future challenges for the county would be significant by following that approach. But we understand that that's also the lowest cost, so it sometimes has an impact.
Chance these costs will come down?
I should note that they are in 2024 dollars, and so projecting into the future, without identifying a date in which we assume this project to take place, it's hard to project that number. I would say I wouldn't anticipate that the cost would come down, no, because many of them aren't associated with items that have flexibility in their costs from year to year. A lot of these costs are pretty strict costs that usually increase with the cost of labor and the cost of equipment and the cost of fuel.
other question? We talked about gathering some public input, an open house or a online questionnaire. What do you guys feel for timeline and something like that?
Sure, for us to be able to work with you to do that, in order to, or are you asking just in general, what should you look at for?
I'm thinking in line with the commission, if we gotta make a decision, we have requests from Aurora and Trenton Township to take over jurisdiction out there. You wanna take, some public input before we make that decision, or you, what timeline do you guys think?
Well, I just don't think we have any choice but to take it over, if we're gonna move forward, and even if we do nothing, to it. I think the township isn't gonna have the capability or the funds to be able to maintain that road, so I don't think we have any other choice but to take over those 2 sections from those there. I think that'd be the first step. I like the idea of a public meeting. We've seen a couple times where we invite you back and you invite the public, and then you go through what you kind of did with us, and then we can take input or any questions and stuff like that too. That's a possibility.
Is your mic on?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I don't know if you can hear me or not. I'm not sure. It's on. And so I guess that would be a question if we wanted to do that. I just think that we need to move forward, and time, I think, is of the essence a little bit in this, because of the length of time to be able to construct this road. You were talking 4 to 5 years, and in that meantime, we've just seen traffic go up increasingly in a matter of months. So, that to me seems like a long time to wait, but I don't know if we have any other choice. So I think our first step is to take those over, and then if we want to do some public meetings, that's fine. But I think we need to move forward quickly.
I guess I would, I encourage obviously a public meeting. Sometimes this data is a little heavy for a public meeting sometimes. So I'm wondering if our committee, Commissioner Jensen, Commissioner Vanderwall would maybe pare this down to one or two recommendations that you guys have discussed that would be the primary presentation to the public, and the other alternatives out there, so to speak, uh, and really put some thought into the presentation of why those would be the ones we should consider, not necessarily based on cost, but that's a big analysis. But this obviously affects most of the people who live east of 34th, and that's the people we're going to get our input from more than anything else. I think more so than citizens in Brookings. So maybe we have that meeting in Aurora somewhere if there's a place large enough. If not, we have it here. But I'd like to see it narrowed down to something we can present in an hour and get comments. As far as us taking over the road, I think we'll move forward as we get those applications and requests come in for those townships. We'll move forward. We'll want a little bit of a cost analysis from Brian of what it's going to take us to maintain that road for 5 years, because obviously we're going to have to do that. That's a consideration for us too. And what are the expectations of the citizens over there in Aurora, that area of the county? What are their expectations of us maintaining that road? Is in the meantime, the gravel, whatever, the least cost effective, they may want us to do that right away. If we go for the top $20 billion project in federal funding, you're 8 years probably was your estimate.
Yeah, so it can be reasonably expected that within 8 years, a construction project could be completed if you're awarded funding upon your initial application. Obviously, that's the hard part to judge on that, right? Is if you apply for funding 4 years in a row and it's not awarded the first
It could
3
be
of
it could
those.
be 8 to 12 years. If it took us 4 years to get funding.
That's why in the report I just put from point of funding or from a successful grant application, it could be expected to be constructed within 8 years. Now, it's not to
Within
say
8
that it will
years,
take those
okay.
full 8 years, but the impacts could require that if there is significant floodplain right-of-way and environmental impacts.
Yeah,
in utilities.
I know we're going to see some changes in the traffic studies as this thing is, what is it? How much does the traffic improve with just the minimum proposal, basically, the lowest cost one? And what would it then anticipate after that? Because I think the same number of people are going to use that. And I appreciate the 25-year forecast because we don't know what's going to go on over there. It will grow, we understand that. But there's an awful lot of variables in this whole process. And sometimes it's, I think I understand it, but at the same time, I think a lot of people won't. And I don't understand all of it, believe me. But I want to move forward. I want to increase the process. I think we just narrowed down to our committee that we have already with your recommendations to see if we can get that presentation put together for primarily the eastern part of the county or any interested parties, whether it's here or it's over in Aurora. Doesn't matter to me, just we need to get it done. And I would say we'd want to do that maybe while we're trying to do the taking over the road. The conversation should be at the same time. It would help us, I think, to look ahead.
Yeah.
That's my suggestion.
I guess kind of we kind of agreed that the open meeting would be a informational purposes. And did you talk online comments type situation or?
Sure. So I guess right in our latest meeting, we discussed format in which the commission would want to offer the information publicly. And it was discussed that for the interchange, there was a public meeting as well as online forum that offered opportunity for public to provide comment in that fashion, rather than whether they're not able to attend a public meeting, or if it's easier to convey their information without maybe it getting muddled amongst other discussion at a public meeting. It offers that opportunity, and then responses can be directed back towards those questions particularly. But again, that would be, so, how do I put this? A public, I would agree with Commissioner Bartley that narrowed down potential alternatives and the associated costs would be a preferred way to present the information. Obviously, not nearly as deep as we presented everything today, but then offering the public an opportunity to discuss more with the commissioners than ourselves, what their feelings and thoughts are. As far as we certainly wouldn't want to be up there speaking on behalf of the commission in any form or fashion outside of presenting the information.
Is there any requirements for a federal grant to have public meetings?
So there is, that's usually associated with processes that are further down the line. So it would be part of like the environmental assessment. There's a public meeting associated with that. And so there would be public meetings required beyond just a public input meeting. It would actually be more of a presenting the preferred alternative based off of the actual impacts analysis, which of course is beyond the scope of what the study itself does.
This is quite a project, and thank you, Banner, for putting all this together. This has been a real learning experience for me. I agree that we need to probably take that over from those two townships. This is going to be a heavy lift, any which way we look at it, and it's going to take a lot of hands to help lift that. So the more entities we can get involved here, but this is a big project that we need some federal funding for, and we need to start that process. The sooner the better.
Like we said before, the overpass came to reality kind of probably quicker than we thought. It's unfortunate that this stretch of road wasn't included with the project, but it wasn't. Like Commissioner Vanderwall said, we're going to need funding partners. We'll be looking for funding sources, and it's much needed. Aurora's growing, the school system in Brookings is growing, industry's growing in Brookings, and it's a better route to Brookings. Agree with Commissioner Bartley. A traffic study, it will for sure impact Highway 14 intersection with Aurora. Also, going to the south down to the Elkton Road, it's gonna there'll be impacts both ways, less or more, or will traffic remain the same because of the growth in Aurora. So I agree, we do need to take that road over from them townships that can't afford it. We'll keep moving forward. I guess our next step would probably be to look for a public informational meeting and keep moving forward. So like to thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you all very much for your time.
Very well done.
Okay, back to our agenda. I believe we're on item number J, approval of highway bids. How do we want to handle these, Stacy? You want me to?
Just as it is on the agenda, just action to award each of those.
Each one of them, or?
Each one is listed out separately by material for the bids, and then the agreements are separate. So there's the first action is on back one page, down at the very bottom.
Okay.
And then all of them are listed as separate action items the rest of the way.
Okay. Item I is action to award the bid for 3/4 crushed gravel on all items listed from Sturzinger Construction Bose Construction, Brookings, South Dakota, Rogie Excavating Incorporated of Ghent, Minnesota. Do I do each one a motion to approve?
That's one action right there. 3/4 crushed gravel.
Okay.
Move to approve?
Second.
And motion second. Comments? Brian, you have comments on?
I guess, these are getting recommended to you guys. We may not use every source, but in the event of an emergency, we would have these bids on hand if we did need to use those sources. One in particular, I'm sure it stands out to you guys too, is Bose Construction. Had a stipulation in their bid that if gravel was purchased under 30,000 tons, that it would be $8, and if we purchased over 30,000 tons, it would be $7. I guess them being the highest bid, I don't know if we'd buy out of that particular source anyway, but if in an emergency we did, I'm sure it would be at that $8 price figure.
So, do you have any idea how that would be handled as you purchase the gravel until all of a sudden when you get over 30,000, they reimburse you, or?
I am not sure. I was not made aware of that when the fellows were sitting in the bid at the conference table. I could not get an answer from them.
Yeah. But typically, if you get gravel from the source, it's paid monthly, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carried. Item 2, action to award the bid for 250-pound crushed quartzite riprap, Class A, 150-pound erosion stone crushed quartzite, 1-inch by number 4 crushed quartzite, Class A, and crushed quartzite ballast, number 4, on all items listed from LG Everest, Del Rapids plant, and the Brookings plant. Do I have a motion to approve?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carried. Item 3, action to award the bid for HR class asphalt on all items listed from Bose Construction, Brookings, South Dakota, and Dunnick Incorporated, Princeburg, Minnesota. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
The only comment I have to make on the Dunnick, that would be picked up out of Watertown.
No further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carried. Item 4, action awarded the bid for asphalt patching on all items listed from Bose Construction, Brookings, South Dakota. Do I have a motion approved?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion?
The patching, much like last year, will encompass the northeast portion of the county.
On these prices for asphalt, what's comparable to last year?
They're actually down just a little bit.
Okay. Back to the action for the asphalt patching. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carried. Item 5, action awarded the bid for road oil, CRS 2P emulsion, and CSS 1H-3-1 emulsion on all items listed from Jebro Incorporated, Sioux City, Iowa. Do I have motion approved?
Move approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Discussion?
Much like the asphalt, these bid prices are actually, I mean, they're right in the same neighborhood. Last year, we were a bid price of $715 per ton, so just a little bit
Okay.
cheaper.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carried. Item 6, an action of the award the bid for PVC/UV CIPP on all items listed from Subsurface Incorporated, Moorhead, Minnesota. That motion approved.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carried. Item 7, action to award the bid for equipment rentals on all items listed from Titan Rentals, Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and Rounds Construction Company, Brookings, South Dakota. That motion approved.
Move. Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? And all these are hourly rates, correct?
The equipment that would be provided from Titan would be our employees running the equipment, and we would have insurance on our own. And the equipment from Rounds would be is if we do run into an emergency to where we need to outsource an entity to help us in a form of an emergency, that equipment would be provided with an operator.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carried. Item K, approval of highway bid agreements. Action approve agreement number 24-31, agreement with Sturzinger Construction LLC of Elkton, South Dakota for 3/4 crushed gravel. That motion approved.
Move approval. Second.
Have motion second. Any comments? Call the roll, please.
Hostler,
Aye.
Vanderwall,
Aye.
Bartley,
Aye.
Krogman,
Aye.
Jensen,
Aye.
motion carries.
Item 2, action approve agreement number 24-32, an agreement with Sturzinger Crushing Incorporated of Taunton, Minnesota for 3/4 crushed gravel. By motion approved.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion second. No discussion. Call the roll, please.
Vanderwall,
Aye.
Bartley,
Aye.
Krogman,
Aye.
Hostler,
Aye.
Jensen,
Aye.
motion carries.
Item 3, action approve agreement number 24-33, an agreement with Bose Construction Incorporated, Brookings, South Dakota for 3/4 crushed gravel. Do I have motion approved?
Second.
Motion and second. Call the roll, please.
Bartley,
Aye.
Krogman,
Aye.
Hostler,
Aye.
Vanderwall,
Aye.
Jensen,
Aye.
motion carries.
Item 4, action approve agreement number 24-34, an agreement with Rogie Excavating Incorporated of Ghent, Minnesota for 3/4 crushed gravel. Have motion approved.
Move to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and second. Call the roll, please.
Krogman,
Aye.
Hostler,
Aye.
Vanderwall,
Aye.
Bartley,
Aye.
Jensen,
Aye.
motion carries.
Item 5, action approve agreement number 24-35, an agreement with Rogie Construction Incorporated of Ghent, Minnesota for 3/4 crushed gravel. Have a motion approved.
So moved.
A motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Hostler,
Aye.
Vanderwall,
Aye.
Bartley,
Aye.
Krogman,
Aye.
Jensen,
Aye.
motion carries.
Item 6, action approve agreement number 24-36, an agreement with LG Everest of Brookings, South Dakota for natural cover aggregate, 250-pound crushed quartzite riprap, Class A, 150-pound erosion stone crushed quartzite, 1 inch times number 4 crushed quartzite Class A, and crushed quartzite ballast. Do I have a motion approved?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Vanderwall,
Aye.
Bartley,
Aye.
Krogman,
Aye.
Hostler,
Aye.
Jensen,
Aye.
motion carries.
Item 7, action approve agreement Number 24-37, agreement with Bose Construction of Brookings, South Dakota for HR Class Asphalt. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Bartley?
Aye.
Krogman?
Aye.
Hostler?
Aye.
Vanderwall?
Aye.
Jensen?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Action to approve agreement number 24-38, an agreement with Dunick Incorporated of Princeburg, Minnesota for HR Class Asphalt. Do I have a motion to approve?
Second.
A motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Krogman?
Aye.
Hostler?
Aye.
Vanderwall?
Aye.
Bartley?
Aye.
Jensen?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Item 9, action to approve agreement number 24-39, an agreement with Bose Construction of Brookings, South Dakota for asphalt patching. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
And motion second. Call the roll, please.
Hostler?
Aye.
Vanderwall? Bartley?
Aye.
Krogman?
Aye.
Jensen?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Item 10, action to approve agreement number 24-40, an agreement with Jebro Incorporated of Sioux City, Iowa for CRS 2P emulsion and CSS 1H-3-1 emulsion. Do I have a motion approved?
Move to approve.
Second.
The motion is a second. Call the roll, please.
Vanderwall?
Aye.
Bartley?
Aye.
Krogman?
Aye.
Hostler?
Aye.
Jensen?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Item 11, action approve agreement number 24-41, an agreement with Subsurface Incorporated of Moorhead, Minnesota for fold and form PVC/UV CIPP. Do I have a motion to approve?
Move approval.
Second.
A motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Bartley?
Aye.
Krogman?
Aye.
Hostler?
Aye.
Vanderwall?
Aye.
Jensen?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Item L, action approve the low bid of $649,823.07 from Bose Construction Incorporated, Brookings, South Dakota for the 2024 Brookings County Surfacing Project and authorize Chairperson Jensen to sign the notice of award. Do I have a motion to approve?
Move approval.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any comments?
Yeah, if you guys recall, this is County Road 19 or 469th Avenue down by Lake Campbell. You guys can see the engineer's estimate there was $753,893.70. As you can see in the bid tabulation, our low bid was from Bose Construction of Brookings for $649,823.07.
Okay. Any questions? Hearing none, call roll, please.
Krogman?
Aye.
Hostler?
Aye.
Vanderwall?
Aye.
Bartley?
Aye.
Jensen?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Item N, action approve the low bid of $76,319.40 from the Road Guy Construction Company Incorporated of Yankton, South Dakota for the 2024 Brookings County Chip Seal Project and authorize Chairperson Jensen to sign the notice of award. Do I have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and second. Any comments?
Stacy, if you could pull back up my report, I wanted to point out to the commission here, we are actually about $1,000 a mile cheaper than we were last year. As you can see, total cost per mile with fog seal, and that is Brookings County applying it, not the contractor. We were at about $28,382.86 per mile. Last year we were nipping on 30. So we are just a little bit cheaper than we were last year.
Yeah. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, call roll.
Hostler?
Aye.
Vanderwall?
Aye.
Bartley?
Aye.
Krogman?
Aye.
Jensen?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Item N, action approve a request to fill vacancy for a finance assistant in the finance office. Do I have a motion approved?
Second.
Have a motion and second. Any comments? Hearing
Due-
none, whoops.
Yep,
sorry.
just due to a resignation.
It was a resignation, Stacy stated, so. No further comments. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Item number 11, Commission Department Director Report.
Just some upcoming dates, and I have to go with a few of those things. Next Wednesday, the 13th, is the 10-county meeting, or the Sioux Valley Commissioners meeting. That is in Huron Campus Center. The address is listed there. The employee committee is putting on a bowling night, 6:30 to 8:30 at the Lanes on Friday the 22nd. There is a flyer that was included in your packets. March 29th, Friday, is Good Friday. The offices will close at noon that day. Coming up April 4th, the Chamber's Taste of Brookings event held at Club 71 at the Dana J. Dyke House Center. If you know you want to attend that, you can let me know. If you know now, you can tell me, or if you're going to know down the road, but we'll probably get a table again. Thursday, April 4th. Yes, Mike? Anybody else? Yeah. Larry, Sean? Ryan, do you know yet? Okay. Okay, and then we have the First Bank and Trust. There's a Focus 2024 event. That's coming up April 11th. That is something that you do have to sign up for as well. 8 to 12:30. If you want me to sign you up for that, or if you want to do that yourself, go ahead. Or you can let me know. What?
I already did.
Okay. Kelly did already. Sean? Okay. Ryan or Larry?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And then there was an invitation, I think it passed it already, to the Brookings Fire Department's annual feed. It's a little ways out, Tuesday, April 30th, just to get that on your calendars. And then the other thing that did come up was we've gotten some information about the Walk a Mile in Her Shoes fundraiser. If you recall, a number of years ago, commissioners participated in this. They actually have she sent me a flyer back from 2015, I think was maybe the last time that we did that. The flyer features Sheriff Stanwyck even in his red high heels. But what they're looking for, just anything, modeling red heels. I know we have some promotional pictures even in the back room. Leading a team, they're going to do the march down Main Street, I believe, again. So as that gets a little bit closer, I'll be kind of reaching out and seeing what you want to do. But that is coming up if you want to mark calendars, May 1st, I believe is what I had. So and keep that in mind, and as it gets a little bit closer, we can talk a little bit more about that. Otherwise, I think that's all I had on my list today.
Okay. Item 12, State's Attorney's Office report. It's the 2023 annual report, correct?
Yes. I won't spend too much time on this. It's there for everyone's review. There was nothing really that was too out of line from last year's stats as it compares to the previous 4 years. We go back to 2019 on this chart. DUI is still the #1 crime on Brookings County, as you can see. Pretty consistent numbers across the board there. If you want to scroll down, go down to, I think we have class 2s. Yeah, so I mean, it's pretty consistent across the board here the last 5 years. And obviously with the diversion program with underage drinking, it used to be that underage drinking was our #1 class 2 misdemeanors, but most of those folks stay out of court now. And go down to the felonies. Yeah, it just looks at the DUI convictions, first offense, second offense, and then third offense and beyond is a felony. So those were up a little bit last year, but, go down to, yeah, just the felony offenses here. That abuse or cruelty to a minor. So the reason those are, maybe as high as they are, or people are wondering what that is so we charge that out if a minor is accompanying someone who's driving drunk. So, in those last few years, we've had a number of those cases where, someone's driving drunk and they have their child with them. So we charge out the DUI as well as abuse or cruelty to a minor. So those convictions are there. And obviously, methamphetamine, still the number one felony offense here in Brookings County and across South Dakota. And so you'll see that down there as well. And yeah, so I mean, that pretty much sums it up. Looks like we were right on the nose almost last year's compared to 2022. And the big reason why we had that drop off from 2019 till, about 100 felonies off is we no longer prosecute THC oil as a felony offense, whereas in 2019 we did. And so those cases are either, if it's someone who's possessing with the intent to distribute, we're prosecuting that as distribution of marijuana, or if it's just simple possession of THC oil, we're treating that like we would a normal misdemeanor offense, marijuana. In some cases, they're eligible for diversion. Other cases, they're not. But the big drop-off primarily is that change that we've made as a policy matter with our office. So that's it. Happy to take any questions, concerns, but pretty straightforward. So.
Any questions? Okay. Thank you.
All right. On Wednesday, February 21, along with Commissioner Jensen, we had a 214 meeting. Also that afternoon with Commissioner Hostler, we had a few representatives from the WIC and Community Health. Had a good visit. Monday the 26th, met with the landowner down at the Sioux River Diversion Channel. Hopefully we'll keep making some progress there. February 28th, Wednesday, the safety pipeline meeting at the Dakota Bank. February 29th, Thursday, the county township meeting along with the weed board meeting in the afternoon. And on March 4, met with Valero along with the rest of you in Aurora. And then last night, I came to Brookings here for the the city's meeting on the 6 Mile to Creek deal. Thank you.
Monday, I think it was the 19th, Brookings Behavioral Health and Wellness Board meeting, attended as far as the fundraising and the project itself, so we hope that we get through the entire process of the environmental review that came through our office. I don't think we had any comments, did we, Stacy, on any of it, so now it goes to the state for 15 days of publication there. On the 21st, I attended the bid opening for the highway department. On the next day, or on the 28th, the pipeline meeting, and then the township meeting, annual township meeting on Thursday, the 29th. That's my report.
Mr. Krogman.
We heard from the investment council there also, and investment probably guess. So that's been good. And then also the financials came in for the first month of the year there, and things looked well there too. It was a profitable month for Brookings Health System, so that was good. On the 28th, we had a beta meeting, and They are struggling to find drivers. They need part-time drivers to fill in positions. Actually, the administration people have now been spending the majority of their time driving. So rides are up, which is great. Almost going to be over 200 more than last year for last month, so that's really good. But they just need they need to get some drivers. What they need, some part-timers and some possible full-timers to fill in. So if anybody's interested in a part-time driver job for Beta, look them up, and they can certainly use the help if they can. So, also the 29th, I was at the Town and Townships meeting for the morning portion of it, and I was well attended, and I think we had good comments on our small structures for the townships there. I think that Mr. Barber come and give a report on that, and I think it hopefully is going to help all the townships work through that process and take advantage of those monies that are available for those small structures on township roads. And then I was also met with Valero yesterday and appreciated lunch there, and got to talk with Aaron, got a good conversation going with them. That's my report.
Mr. Hostler.
Yeah, on the 21st, quick little meeting with Commissioner Vanderwall. That afternoon, attended via Zoom the Public Affairs Committee weekly legislative update. And with all of you, attended the Valero Community Lunch and Information Week.
Thank you. On Wednesday, the 21st, street planning discussion. On Monday, the 20th, thank landowner and Bob Hill for taking us out to the diversion site in Madera Township. We've looked at a lot of pictures and everything, but it was very beneficial to go out to the actual site and look at the river in its current condition. It's kind of at a low flow right now, and it was interesting to go out there and look at that. On Tuesday, extension board meeting. Some new members involved. Officers were elected. There is some new criteria that come down from the South Dakota Extension on being a volunteer. It's basically more paperwork that needs to be done for each meeting that you have, that you're in charge of children or 4-H participants. You need to do some more paperwork, I guess, and they're kind of worried that it might impact people volunteering, but they're working through that to hopefully streamline the paperwork and make it easy for a volunteer to fill it out. On Wednesday, the 28th, went to South Dakota Pipeline Association safety meeting out at the Swiftel. It was a good informational meeting. On the 13th, I went to the township meeting there in the morning, and then the weed meeting in the afternoon. Well attended and always some good information. Yesterday, also went over to Valero. We had a roundtable discussion with the people there and the sheriff's office in Aurora, basically on future plans and needs. And it was a good meeting, and I think we'll continue to have one year in the future. So we'll move on from there. Item number 14, executive session in accordance with South Dakota Codified -2, parenthesis 1, personnel, and parenthesis 4. Do I have a motion to enter into executive session?
So moved.
A motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Enter into executive session after a brief break.